Hey, how's it going, guys? This is John R. We're here with She Got Game, and today we have a lovely guest. I'm very excited to have on. She appears to be a jack of all trades. She does a lot of things here. She's a former college basketball player. She's a sports marketing consultant, host, influencer, and manager. Shout out to Victoria Mazzeo. A lot of people know her on social media as Baby V. Thank you again for taking the time to chat with me tonight. And here at She Got Game, we really appreciate it. We have a ton to get to here. I want to start with your background slightly, because there's just so much to get to. You're originally from Pennsylvania. Where specifically in PA did you initially grow up?
So I moved around a lot as a kid. I think, and I always say this, I think in my basketball career, what molded me the most was my time in Detroit, which was like fourth grade to ninth grade. Um, and I think that's like a crucial time in any kid's basketball career age.
Mhm.
And I think that's really where I like locked in and played basketball. Um, Unfortunately for me, I was like used to be one of the taller people and kill. Remember, I used to get like 30 to 40 point games in middle school, and I just didn't know how good I had it. And then everyone kind of caught up, and turned out being one of the shorter players on the court always.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think Detroit is where it molded, and then we moved to Pennsylvania when I was in ninth grade, and I did high school there, and I ended up doing college there. Both my colleges were there, and definitely a Philly girl.
I was gonna say, a lot of people, especially when playing basketball, right? Like you kind of take on the mold of whatever city or whatever area you play in.
Yeah.
Would you say, you playing like Philly? I know they got signature bounce when they play. Like it's a certain crossover. It's just little different details in their game. Would you say in your game you implemented things from Detroit as well as Philly, in your basketball game?
I think Philly and Detroit are both like more gritty cities, opposed to they're not really like flashy cities. It's more like, hey, let's actually buckle down, play defense,
Gotcha.
just like a hardened hustle look to them both. So yeah, I don't think my game's pretty. I'll be like the last person to be like, yeah, my game's really pretty. It's not. It's There's so much just hustle and grit and just sheer will in it. And I do owe some of that, if not all of it, to Philly and Detroit.
You gotta respect it. You gotta respect it. Do a lot of the things that people don't want to do. The hustle plays. That makes sense. That makes a lot.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you were one of the few, I guess, in PA at the time. Like you were very, I guess, highly recruited, right? I looked into some things, and you were one of the few who were granted an opportunity to play at the next level, right? Now, prior to becoming, where you are professionally and playing at Arcadia and things of that nature, what would you say your life looked like as an athlete versus what it looks like now, being on more of the business side of things?
I played at Chestnut Hill in Arcadia, but honestly, I always tell people in business or just in life,
Mhm.
hard work does not scare me because unless you're telling me to get up at 4 a.m., do strength and conditioning, run sprints, take 7-hour classes, come do another 3-hour practice, do homework, and start all over in the morning. I think I was running on 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours of sleep most of my college, and it wasn't because I was out partying. It was just class load and basketball.
Mhm.
I also played. I didn't play Division 1, so we didn't have the luxury of planes. I mean, even women's basketball, a lot of D1 teams doesn't have planes, so we would have a lot of long bus rides. I remember I'd get in at like 2, 3 a.m. from a game, and I'd have an 8 a.m. class, even if we had like coach gave us an easier day. So that means that we only had like one practice and it wasn't till 5 p.m. or whatnot. Uh, unless you're telling me to do sprints and all that all day, I can handle a 10-hour day, 12-hour day, you name it. It's nothing compared to what I went through as a college athlete.
Absolutely, absolutely. So mentioning that a little bit of college athlete and the differences in lives a little bit. Would you say the competitor edge that you had as a as an athlete, does that fire still lie in you a little bit? Or has that, died out completely? And if it does, like, do you just ship it? Do you just shape it in different areas of your life?
No, you know what? I think fortunately or unfortunately for me, basketball has shaped exactly who I am today. And one of the things I'm so grateful for in basketball, no matter how bad you get your ass beat, no matter how bad, no matter how hurt you get anything in one game, the next game is always 0-0. So I think in this business aspect of my life, I think a lot of people might have folded by now. I've gotten my handed to me in a lot of different ways in the business world, but I'm grateful because I do have that tenacity that basketball shaped. And if there's one thing I know about myself, and oftentimes I'm extremely hard on myself, but there's one compliment I'll give myself is I'm always going to get up. Like you can hit me as hard as you want, you can pound me into the ground, but there's not a world where I don't get up, shake it off, and continue.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's I mean, now did you learn that from basketball? Or is that just kind of what life has taught you? Is that like a life lesson in general, or you think you learned that from the game?
Started from basketball, and I think I just always implemented in my life. But I mean, even as a kid, I was always getting knocked around, especially I always played with boys as one of those girls that played pickup a lot with boys, especially in Detroit. I played on the playgrounds out there and I got my ass handed to me. Like it wasn't pretty. I'd come home with bloody noses all the time and my mom would be so upset. And I was like, it's just basketball. Like it's fine. Like and it's my fault too, because sometimes that like the guys were even being gracious or kind or respectful and I would just run in there to try to get a rebound that I had no business trying to get and I'd get an elbow because they were all a couple inches taller than me at least.
Mhm.
And it just kept playing. I don't know. It's just always keep playing. So in life, it's just keep going. You just change the mantra.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to transition slightly to know, because kind of having that heart of a lion mindset, right? At times it could be like isolated. Like at times, there's a lot of times where that can kind of, it makes you feel like you're on the island all the time,
Mhm.
and that could be beneficial. Could be detrimental as well. With that said, it's safe to say now, like with your social media presence and just where you are now in life, it's safe to say, all from your social media presence, you've put a lot of work in, you've done a lot of things, and you have a lot more support than possibly you had in the past, right? Um, some of those things you've managed to accomplish are almost nearly impossible for a women in the sports industry. People in the industry understand and they really, really I guess respect it to a certain degree because they know how difficult that can be to be accomplished or what you accomplish, right? With that said, can you explain a little bit of your journey and what that represents? And if possible, if you could offer any advice to other women that are looking to possibly break in the industry and do what you do.
I mean, just to play on what I just talked about, I mean, keep going. Always just keep going. I think too, and another thing I learned from sports is no matter what you are doing or who you are, you're always going to experience conflict or hate or doubt. And the game is just you just have your belief in yourself has to be greater than anyone around you. I think another thing too is surround yourself by good people. I mean, as you said, in your mind it might look like I have more support, but really my support has never it's not different. Like
Gotcha.
uh an Instagram following can go up or likes can go up, but they can also go down and you can be I mean, especially in the industry, certain people are hot one week and not hot another week. Or you'll see cancel culture. Some people are really famous and then they get canceled and they're really famous again. It's just ebbs and flows. I think the most important thing is to surround yourself by people that are not ebbs and flows. I'm very, very, very fortunate to have the family and friends I do have. And I think when I first moved to LA, it was really hard to find that sense of family I've had because I didn't realize how insulated and protected I was
Mm,
in Philadelphia because I had so many friends that I've known from high school, from college. I have an incredible family. Like my mom and dad are amazing. My little brother, they're just so positive and selfless and supportive in every facet of my life. And the cool thing is, even in LA, their love and support is so great, my friends and family,
mm,
that they like almost created some kind of shield that I was able to take a lot of hits and maybe meet some people that weren't so great. So the support, it honestly, I could have 10 likes, I could have a million likes, I could have 10 followers, I could have a million followers. The only thing that'll ever matter to me is that inner circle. I think that's more important than anyone will ever know.
absolutely, absolutely. Would you say that like you said, I mean, the sports industry is kind of it's up and down, like you said, and that's a real thing. You can be hot one week, you can be cold. It's just like sports. It's literally like sports. And would you say so that core group, and that's carried with you your entire life, and still going to continue to carry on with you? Would you say that that is kind of your fuel? And sometimes when you get down, or when you start thinking of your why, do you kind of think of them sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's so comforting to know no matter what happens, if I make it or I don't, if I'm super rich or I'm super poor, if I'm famous or I'm not, it's like none of that matters. It's just I have people who love me so organically and fight me and support me that yeah, it it's really helpful because you take a lot of shit sometimes and I just wouldn't be anywhere without them. But yeah, so inner circle would probably be in a lengthy definition, my second word of advice. And the third word of advice would be take risk. I mean, you live one life. When I moved to LA, I moved 3 years ago at the very beginning of the pandemic. My flight was $20 actually, because no one was supposed to be flying. And I think I was one out of two people on a flight from Philadelphia to LAX. And
Crazy.
um, I generally didn't know what was around the corner. I just had a lot of faith in God and I just took that risk and took everything that came with it. And one risk led to another risk that led to another. And it just ended up putting me in some pretty cool places.
Absolutely. You just mentioned your risk. I want to build on that. Prior to becoming exceptional and building certain relationships and cementing some relationships you have in the industry, how were you introduced in general to the game of basketball? I mean, like, was it just you woke up one day and just was like, all right, let's run with the boys? Or like, how were you actually introduced to the game? Who or
You
what?
know what? It's so funny because my parents are not basketball people at all, like at all. It's so funny. Everyone's like, your dad must have been in the NBA. My dad is a chemist. He does not do sports. It's actually interesting because I think most dads would be hyped to have me as a daughter and be like, "Can you get this person's autograph? Can you get this person's autograph?" Like, he is so not like that. It is crazy. Like, they've never asked me to bring them to a game. In fact, I had courtside seats at a Sixers game, actually, like 3 rows behind, and I asked my dad because I want to give back to them when I can.
Of course.
He turned me down because he needed to go to a neighborhood party with my mom. Like, I just don't dad in the world that would do. I was like, Dad, but I have really good seats. He's like, yeah, but I promised mom that I would go with her. And I think that just speaks a lot to their character.
Of course, yeah.
Um, but I'm sorry, rephrase the question one more time.
Yeah, no, no, no. I was just how did you get started? Like, who or what inspired you, kind of,
Uh,
to even pick
oh
up
yeah,
that
they're not sports people. This is gonna be funny because I never actually shouted out this guy, but I had a neighbor.
stuff?
His name was Charlie, and he was 3 years older than me. And all we would do together, he was my like one of my only neighbors because when I was really young, I lived in more of a desolate neighborhood. There's a lot of space between our houses. So it's not like you had like a lot of options. It was, hey, the closest neighbor was still pretty far away. And it happened to be a boy named Charlie who's 3 years older than me. And we just always do what he wanted to do because he's older. And so we'd play Nintendo 64 and basketball. And
Okay.
he would kick my ass constantly, and then he would go home, and instead of me going inside, I would stay out in my driveway and be like, "What did we do today?" We tried to see who can get the most dribbles and whatever. I mean, again, I guess I'm lucky. I grew up in a time where we didn't have iPads or smartphones or
Mhm.
social media. So like what we did for fun was like, how many dribbles can you get and how many shots can you make? And
Yeah.
it was just a lot of outdoor activities. And he just liked basketball and I like basketball. The funny part is I don't even think he ended up playing in high school, and it just like struck something in me. My parents put me in a YMCA league. There was no girls leagues because I think I was like only 4 or something. So I just was the only girl in a guys league, and I just kind of had to learn that way. But I do think I had a little bit of athleticism to me naturally, and just basketball. I just fell in love and never looked back. Kemp was on the Sonics. I really liked him because I lived in Washington at the time, and I just, I don't know. I just
Just
basketball basketball became my thing, and it's so funny because the neighborhood introduced me to it. I don't even think he cares about basketball or played in high school and has no idea
yeah,
how far the game has brought me to this day. It's still like my entire life. But yeah, that was like the first spark was my neighbor.
it's kind of crazy. Usually there's like a dad or it's like a grandpa or something that's actually really interesting. Shout out to Charlie.
Oh,
Shout out
yeah.
to Charlie.
The neighbor. I haven't talked to him in 20 something years, but shout
Jesus.
out.
Shout out to Charlie, man. Is there anyone you idolized or like you looked up to? You kind of just mentioned Sean Kemp, but like was there anyone you idolized or kind of modeled your game off when when you were playing and stuff in the WNBA or in the NBA? Like were there any players you tried to idolize or model your game after?
Yeah, so I think my first look into WNBA players was I played this game called Backyard Basketball.
Yep.
There was a player, the only 2 basketball players they had that was like, it was like Kevin Garnett and Lisa Leslie. So I love Lisa Leslie. And then in middle school, I lived in Detroit and I used to go to Auburn Hills at the time. And it was when the 2004 Pistons won. And I love that team more than ever. I still always will. I was fortunate enough to have a friend in middle school whose dad connected and brought us to a lot of games. And it's also funny because I don't think that guy cares about basketball either. And it's just, I remember just being enthralled and just cared so much. And I loved Ben Wallace, which was super random, but he was just size and such a good defender and so gritty. I remember they'd play this like daunting bell every time he came out. And as a kid, I just thought it was so cool. And like flames would come out when you say his name. And even that team alone, growing up, I realized it's so crazy how they had like 0 superstars.
None. It was like
no,
Sean. Yeah.
no shade to the 2004 Pistons. I mean, they're all very capable, but I think one of the coolest teams ever is just how well they played as a team and how much they were for the team. I think it really shows that sport like basketball. I mean, yes, there's greats, obviously, like Kobe, MJ, LeBron, but it's crazy because they beat some of the greats just by playing team ball as 5 people, not one. And they'll forever. I'm always going to be a 2004 Pistons. Um, I only used to have 1 or 2 jerseys, and one of them was a Ben Wallace jersey. And I was like, I do not understand. Like, I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I was like, you don't have to get it, but I rock with it. And again, my game has never been pretty. So it's, even though I respect the hell out of Kobe and I think he's an insane player, like it was hard for me to relate because I was just never one of those finesse players. And people like Ben Wallace is like, this is dope. They're like, he doesn't even score. I'm like, but look how effective he is on the court.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, look, there's a job for those guys too. It makes a lot of sense. It's just odd because most people attract to the guy who's getting 30 or the guy
I
who's
was
getting
I
25.
was just never into the flash. I was always about the grit and the hard work, and I don't know why I'm like that. Even now, I'm such a defender and I'll look to pass all the time. Like I was never that person, even if I was more than capable and better than the
Mhm.
people I just was never looked to go crazy and shoot a ton of shots. And I mean, I think I have a pretty good shot, and I just was never that type of person. I really do think, and I think a lot of people who played with me will say like I'm just a team player to almost my own detriment.
I mean, you gotta like it though. Like everyone likes to play with those guys. You need those guys on the team, perfect
Yeah.
glue guys. And they do, you know, you could pack if you can shoot, if you can score, you pick up for where other people lack and stuff too. So that's pretty interesting. I do want to ask you though. So here at She Got Game, we always do. It's a segment here. We always do a She Got Game moment. I'm not sure if you know what that means, but usually what that means is at some point either in your athletic career or even in your professional career, at some point you kind of realize you've arrived. Like we all kind of have that self doubt all the time, but there's a point in time in your career. At some point, you're like, nah, like I've arrived, like I'm here. What was that moment for you, either athletically, professionally? What was your She Got Game moment?
I have two. I have one that happened in college, and then I have another one that happened in my post college career that was just insane that I think you'll really respect because you're an East Coast guy.
Mm.
And I actually you guys post it, so I think you'll know where I'm going. But um, the one in college was so cool because be real. My high school team was fairly good. I remember we were in playoffs. We needed one bucket. The coach put the ball in my hand, right? Like this is my shining moment. I was going to be the savior. We literally it was playoffs. It was do or die. Like I think we were down one or something, and the coach was like, "You have the ball. You're like it's every person's dream or nightmare. It depends on who you are." But they put the ball in my hands to drive. Not only did I miss the shot,
Okay.
I I didn't even think at the time to draw the foul. Like I don't know. I just completely blanked. Like shit the bed and
Okay.
lack of bed. And I remember like this was like such an awakening moment. I overheard after the game, so I already felt like shit, right? We lost the game, and I was someone who took losses hard when I was younger, really hard. Like
Yeah.
I think I lost the sleep because this is my senior year. That was it. Like there was no like, you know how you get happy at so many people the movies get happy endings on my senior year. Mine was possibly the worst ending that could happen. Like we got far, they put the ball in my hands, I shit the bed. And on top of that, afterwards in the locker room, I overheard my coaches arguing how I shit the bed. And one of them was like, we shouldn't have gave her the ball. Another coach was like, it made the most sense. And like basically, I don't want to say talking shit, but just having coaching talk I wish I never overheard. I don't think they realized like how like
Yeah.
thin the whatever. So I'm an 18-year-old girl at the time. I could have even been 17. And I just remember feeling the worst I've ever felt in life. Like I let my team down. The coaches couldn't even be fake to me and be like, it's okay. Cause like I already heard their conversation.
Yeah.
I remember I just lost sleep. I think I lost sleep for weeks. Like I think I still have nightmares about it. So then fast forward to my senior year in college, the same thing happens. We're down.
Okay.
Well, first off, I think it was cool. Like we were down one and I took a charge. It wasn't even supposed to be our ball. I took a charge for us to get the position, which I'm weird. I like respect charges more than anything. If you're someone who could like make a play like that, I think that's so
Huge.
cool.
Yeah. It's huge.
So I took a charge to give us the possession. And I think that was part reason. I mean, I was a decent player, but part of the reason coach was like, nah, give her the ball. Like she's making her head's in the right place, give her the ball.
Mm.
And I was having PTSD the mess. I was like, oh my God, it's gonna happen again. Like they're giving the ball. Like I'm not gonna win us the game. I'm gonna screw it all up. Like, but
Yeah.
it's so weird because I thought that, but then I got on the court and I got the ball in my hand. I was like, nah, like I got this. Like I'm not 18 anymore. I'm 21. I can do this. And I also like obviously have been through a lot in the past 3 years. I was a different person than I was in high school.
Sure.
Not at my core, but I just got like obviously your mental changes a little bit.
Of course.
And I got the ball and I took it and I made it. And I remember my coach saying afterwards, she's like, they called me Maz, and she's like, Maz, I saw your eyes. Like you looked up at the scoreboard literally. And before you even did the drive, I knew you're gonna make it. Like you just she's like, I wish you could have seen your face. It was just like this like moment, your face changed. And I was just like, we're good. Like I didn't even have to watch you. I knew that shit was going in. I was like, it was a really good feeling. And then I just felt like I was redeemed from 3 years ago.
You ready?
And on top of that, we played the exact same team.
Okay.
Like maybe a month later, we were almost in the exact same position and we ran the exact same play. She gave me the ball again and she's like, Maz, you got to do it again. I'm like, I can't do this again. Like, what are you? You're out of your mind. Like, I'm not hitting this again. And I hit it again. And you know what's crazy? My dumb ass did not even do like a backboard drive. It was a teardrop. I teardropped it from the side. So if
Got
it
a
missed,
little-
it was terrible. And my teammates like, you teardrop that? Like we were in a game winning position and you tear but in my head, like I don't know, I just like knew it was gonna go in. Like I was like, gonna be fine. Like and
Baseline floater for the game is crazy. That's
no,
crazy.
thinking back on it, it was idiotic. And I just like had that much, I don't know if it's delusion of confidence, but it was so different from that 18 or 17-year-old girl in high school. It was like I was a different person. I made it again. It was so funny because the article was like, so and so beats so and so again, like Mazzeo Lazen thing. And like it was like comma again. I remember that article. I could send it to you. It was just hilarious.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just felt so redeemed. I was like, I went from completely screwing up my senior season
So
and like, and looking back, I was young. I mean, nowadays, if you ask me about a basketball game, losing or winning by one shot is ridiculous. There's a lot of actions before that one shot that wins or loses a game. But at the time, I just didn't think like that.
yeah.
I don't think I was emotionally or mentally as mature, obviously, or as I am now. And some of that, some of that stems down to coaching. I won't lie. Some of that stems down to good coaches and bad coaches. But yeah. So I hit that. So that's definitely my She Got Game moment.
Absolutely.
And I'm very fortunate. I mean, some people don't experience game winners their whole lives, and
That's crazy. You got two.
I think I think actually at 3 that year is just so nice that some of them were more important than others. Like some of them was like if I didn't make it, would have just been a tie game.
Gotcha.
But these were cool.
Mm.
And my post college She Got Game moment was Dykeman Park.
Dykeman. Okay.
I was playing in a like a influencer game or celebrity game or something. And,
Yeah. What are you
and
doing in New York?
and I'm in the East Coast. Every time I'm in the East Coast, I feel like I get one of those like surges through my skin that just like energy, like you're back home, you're good, you're good, you're good. And there was already a lot of guys making comments because I was one of the only girls on the court, and I don't really look like a basketball player, especially Dykeman. If you know anything about Dykeman, like I did not look like I belong.
I was about to say, no, Dykeman energy is a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's real. And I hit a half court shot on double rims outside, and
The place exploded.
I walked away like I meant it, and I did mean to do that, but like I just remember. I mean, I played college basketball for women's. It really wasn't as popular back when I played, so I think that crowd was bigger than any of my college games, to be honest. And it went crazy. Like everyone was like, "That is not real life right now," and that was my She Got Game moment. Following up,
I love it. I love it. The walk off half court at Dykeman is crazy. And if
yeah,
for people at home, that may view this, Dykeman in the East Coast is a pretty important park. It's up there with Rucker Park. It's up there with very historical parks to New York basketball. So just to kind of give you guys a sense of what that is, it's like she pretty much, I guess, the closest thing on the East Coast to the Drew League and stuff like that. Would kind of be the Dykeman, and she balled out. So that's a pretty big deal, at least on the East Coast. So congrats, and obviously that's a big moment and stuff like that. That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, no, I wanna talk about more kinda your post career, your post basketball career a little bit, right? Just wanna transition a little bit. We talked a little off air about it. However, I wanted to ask you, what did well, let's put it this way. Did you ever believe at one point in your life, at any point of your post basketball career, even in your basketball career, did you ever believe you would be arm's reach from Jeannie Buss and would be able to take a picture and have any type of relationship with the Lakers owner?
Um, um, you know what? I really didn't. And again, I think we had this conversation. I'm from Philly, and there's not a lot of celebrity.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I think in LA, there's a lot more touching elbows with certain people, but in Philly, there's not much of that. So you don't really think about celebrities or touching elbows with celebrities when you live in a city like that.
Hmm.
And my goal in life was never to necessarily be famous or to be in big rooms.
Hmm.
I just wasn't thinking that way. I think more so something that I think shocked me more than even being in rooms with certain people is like modeling for Nike and Adidas. I think
Yeah.
those were big for me. I think a really cool full circle moment was I was able to do an Adidas photo shoot, which is cool. And then shortly after that, I ended up working with T Mac. He did a one-on-one,
Cool.
um, like a one-on-one league, and we did the whole summer together. He's an awesome guy. His family's amazing, and he did a cover for Slam. And in that same magazine was my Adidas photo shoot. It just happened to be
Crazy.
in there, and it was the coolest thing of one of the coolest moments of my life, and so full circle because not only did I get to work with someone as great as T Mac, but I was also in the same magazine that he was in the cover. So my first magazine was also his cover, and it was really it's a cool moment. And I remember him even laughing. He was like, "You couldn't just let me have my moment," like joking with me. And I was like, "You don't understand how big of a moment this is." And he signed the magazine, and I have it, and that that's one of my best full circle moments. And that's something I would have never dreamt of.
Mhm.
First off, working with T Mac, and again being in the same magazine with him
Unreal.
ever. That was really cool.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's unreal. That's unreal. Those are like the basketball icons you grow up looking. They're like freaking, they're part of the basketball gods, So that's really cool, man. That's really cool.
I've been extremely blessed, and I mean, there are of course that saying "Don't meet your heroes." There's definitely a few of those stories, but as far as like, there's been some really big guys as far as Iverson and T Mac, and they didn't let me down for a second. They just were so great, and I feel so honored to have worked with them in any sense or be around them in any sense, and that is something I thank God for.
Absolutely. You kind of name dropped a few big names, right? And another big name that I think is immensely respected around the league and people know him is Phil Handy, right? And I kind of wanted you to touch on a little bit how important is your connection, and what has that relationship with Phil Handy meant to you, and just how has that relationship helped build professionally and stuff like that.
Phil is one of the best people I've ever met, industry or not industry. I was really fortunate. I mean, I've known him for a while, but when I first moved out here, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy by any sense. And Phil was one of the few people I was like, okay, there's good people out here. Like, we can do this. And he recognized just my pure love of basketball early on. I used to volunteer a lot with him until I low key convinced him to work with me. And I think he saw the genuineness in me that I saw in him.
Mhm.
And we've just been building for 3 years, and there's few people I'm more grateful for than him. Like, he's always had my back. He's family. He's never steered me wrong. And I even today I heard an amazing story about him where his camp started yesterday. So we started a camp
Mhm.
under his name, and one of the camp counselors is there, and he told me that his biggest life-changing moment was when he just blindly DM'd Phil for advice. And Phil, who most people don't know, is, I call him the president or the mayor sometimes because the amount of text and calls this man gets, like, I'm a busy person, but Phil is just off the record busy.
Oh,
He made time and got on the phone with this guy he's never met, and brought him into the camp just out of the goodness of his heart. And I hear stories like that about him, and it just speaks to his character.
yeah,
He never I had a lot of, unfortunately, I mean, I had a fair amount of not so great coaches growing up, and being around someone like Phil who's so even keeled and respectful and just always goes above and beyond to be generous or kind and patient. There's even at the camp, he says hi to every parent, every kid, um, and he's never not helped me if I needed it. So I'm very blessed to be around someone like that so often.
absolutely, absolutely. It's very clear he's played a huge part, in your career and just like kind of, guiding you. I mean, at some point we all need some type of mentor to some type of, help at some point. And it's clear as day he's played a huge part in your career. So that's really cool the relationship you have with him. And
Yeah,
at least
he's I will say this too. I work with him a lot, obviously. Like, we worked together for 3 years straight. There's never been a time where he hasn't said thank you or I appreciate you or just gone out of his way just to be. And I've worked with a lot of people, and unfortunately I feel like that thank you or I appreciate you or even just good feedback is hard to come by. And he doesn't matter if the task is small or doesn't matter how small it is, he always says thank you.
that's important. That's very that tells a lot about his character. That's really important. Uh
Yeah.
so you mentioned a few things here, and like it's the reason why we wanted to interview. Your story is just so layered. I wanted to ask you, kind of reminiscing a little bit and speaking with me. What part of your journey do you kind of look back at times? I know you said sometimes you have tunnel vision, and it's hard for you to kind of look back and sit at the top of the mountain. But at what part of your journey do you ever look at and find the most joy in knowing how far you've come so far?
I think that T-Mac moment I just spoke about, I think, honestly, even this past month or so, Iverson Classic in the East Coast. And I think I was telling you, just being around my East Coast family, but in a different sense, like people who coached me in college or were around me when I was 20, 19, and they've seen my journey and they also know exactly the type of person I am. And then seeing him in a setting like the Iverson Classic where we're all together working in some extent, and them just to be like, I'm proud of you and I can't believe how far you've come. Those things are kind of full circle moments for me. And it means the world. Or even I think last year, so Phil has a coaching clinic, maybe 2 years ago actually. Phil has a coaching clinic we've been putting on, does a great job. He uh, helps out other coaches. But a girl who I hooped with in Philly,
Mhm.
she is a coach now, and she flew across the country to come to this clinic. And it was so funny because she was back and forth with Phil's admin, and she didn't know the admin was me. And when she showed up to the camp, she was like, or the clinic, she was freaking out. She's like, I had no idea you were a part of this project. Like, and that part was really cool. Like, anytime that I can just come full circle with just really genuine people. Uh, it means a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do. So we there's so much. I mean, because like there's so much to say there. You know, I want to give an opportunity for you to kind of explain a little bit for the audience at home, right? What was your transition like? Like from a post player, oh, excuse me, I said post player, from a basketball player to transitioning into that admin role, or it sounds like Phil Handy's assistant. You know, what was that transition like for you? And what I mean, because you kind of spoke about it, you hopped on a plane, you flew out to LA. However, you know, even in that, you got to have certain conversations, right, and meet certain people. What did that look like for people at home that maybe wanting to follow in your footsteps?
So I think a big thing that I did was I didn't just fly out to LA because I was like, I want to go to LA and make it. I think at the time I needed adventure. I felt like Philly and New York, I just did it so much. And I got the opportunity to do a medical device job actually in LA. And I got laid off 2 months without getting it. It was like it's the beginning of the pandemic. Uh, things were not open. It didn't even make sense. Like my job didn't even make sense at the time because stuff was just not open. So I got laid off and I could have came home, but instead I spent a lot of time in the gym and luckily I got picked up by other people who were in the hoop world and I was able to like do coaching and bits and ends of things. And I really stayed in the gym. When I first moved out here, I played a lot. I played in Venice ball. I played Meta World Peace had a like league during the pandemic that I played in constantly. And I just played. And I was able to network a lot. And I was very fortunate just to do projects with Meta, projects with other old NBA players, and Phil was pretty steady, and it just kept leading to more opportunities and more projects, and I could not be more grateful for some of the things I've done. I was
Absolutely.
also, and as I mentioned, I was able to do a little bit of modeling with Adidas and work with some other sports brands, bigger sports brands. That was very cool. Um, and it was just able to catapult thing after thing. And there was certain moments. I remember there's one time I needed another $750 for rent. And in LA, I think there's a lot of darker ways to make money than in Philly. And
Absolutely.
I remember rejecting a lot of those ways and just praying and be like, God, if I'm meant to be here, it'll happen. And like I would say 3 days before rent was due, I got an email from Bleacher Report saying that they had a t-shirt collab dropping that they wanted to use me for. And it was for Iverson out of all people. And
Word.
it was crazy because obviously like I'm from Philly.
Of course.
Iverson, one of the players that's near and dear to my heart. And they were going to pay me exactly to the T $750. And I was just
Man, you
I was
can't make that up. You can't
like,
make that up, bro.
this is one of those moments where you're just like, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I feel like I'm on the right path. And that was before I've never done influencer work. Like that's again not a thing in Philly. So I didn't really understand it. Um,
That was kind of
but
your.
I knew someone was willing to pay me $750 to put on a couple Iverson shirts and take some shots. I'm just like, if this could not be more tailored to the person I am, I don't know.
No, I mean, you can't write that any better, bro. Like you can't write that any better. So one of the key things you did just speak about that again. Uh, for certain people, I will say it's very hard. Networking, speaking, you know, as an individual, as a professional in the space now, it is hard. It's an art. It's an art for certain people. Some people you got it, some people you don't. Unfortunately, you know, I want to ask you, what type of tips can you give people, or like what kind of works for you, right? Because networking comes in all sorts. Some people just strictly DM, email, and hope to kind of get in contact. Some people walk right up to you, no matter where you are, introduce themselves and blah blah blah. So what kind of has worked for you, and like what would you kind of advise for some of these young people that want to make connections, to do?
I mean, I think right now DMs give you a lot of access to people that you normally wouldn't have access to. So if I was to do everything over again in my life, when I graduated college, because there's a long period where I did pharmaceutical and medical device sales just to make some money. Although I am grateful for that time in my life because I think the business side of things and just working in the corporate setting, especially how I articulate words and conversations and just having any kind of sales experience, I do think is helpful and has brought me where I am. But if I could do everything over again, I think I would write a list of the 5 people who I think have the coolest job, who I'm just like, "Oh, I wish I could do this. That would be so amazing. That's such a cool job." Uh, and I would probably DM them and offer to intern that for them for free for however long it took to learn how they got where they were, or maybe network with some of the places that made them who they are. I apologize. And yeah, I think that would be my biggest advice is don't necessarily I think when I graduated, I looked for a way that I could make the most money, and I almost wish that instead of that, I just got into a field that I wanted more than anything and just worked my way up, even if it was working for free. And it's almost like college number 2. Like even in LA, I've almost thought of it as another graduate school. Like everything's a lesson. It's just a lot harder and more detrimental when you mess up. But
Yeah.
every everything's a lesson and a learning curve. Even this new world of celebrity and influencers and social media and just how they move out here, that's just been a whole new
Yeah.
thing. I also think when it comes to networking, what's going to be for you will be for you. I think it's easy for people to misconstrue things out of projection or whatever. And I think the people that you're supposed to be around, you will find them and just stay as true to yourself as possible. And that's really what I've tried to do. I've never lied. I've always said I'm from Philly. I always said I didn't play D1. I've made sure to keep it as real as possible. I've always said people come up to me a fair amount and be like, "Oh, I just want to do what you do and be what you do what you do." And I literally look them in the face and say, "I don't even know what I'm doing. I couldn't even tell you what my future is going to look like. I just know I take one day at a time."
Yeah.
And I also, again, I'll say things oftentimes are conveyed a lot bigger and cooler than they actually are.
Mm. That's
I think it's so funny because you keep mentioning you work with Phil Handy. That's so great. Like, that's so cool. He's one of the biggest. I mean, his basketball camp, I'm in there 7 hours a day with 60 kids. And it's not like he's in there a lot. Like he's a very busy man. Like he comes in once a week and talks to the kids and work with them, yes. But for the most part, like that's just me and 60 kids running around all day. It's not like we get paid a ton at basketball camps. It's great. It's the trenches and uh I think you kind of got to be willing to go through that to get to them, I guess, the more glamorous things.
Absolutely. I would agree with you there. I definitely think, you know, it is fun, and the access and stuff I think a lot of people in the industry have is dope. But I do think there's a bit of a misskewed reality to it, where you know, they it's not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone. Like you just said, that 60, you're in there 7 hours with 60 plus kids, 7 days a week or whatever the case is. Like that's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
driving almost 2 hours there and back.
That's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot that's just I wish people would almost unglamorize things.
Mm,
I think a lot of like the biggest influencers will say The bigger get, the more hate you get, the more nasty DMs that can really be like detrimental to mental health.
Mhm.
I think the more you get in a world where there's a lot of slabs and a lot of money, it's hard sometimes to remember the things that really matter. Um, it's hard to stay grounded. That's why, again, it brings me back to your core circle. I'm very fortunate. I have, again, the best parents in the world, and the amount that I tell you that they do not give a crap about celebs or know even too much about the NBA is, or WNBA is just next. Like people would be astounded. I one day I'm gonna do probably one of those like reels where you show your parents a bunch of faces that everyone in the world knows, and they'd be like, and it's just cool because they keep me grounded because they really don't care about that stuff. They care about like, hey, make sure you're back for Christmas. Make sure you say,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and again, I'm very fortunate where when I've had to explain this path I'm taking that doesn't really exist, that I'm just kind of creating for myself, instead of them being like, "You're crazy for moving to LA. You're crazy for thinking you do this. Like, you'll never make it or anything." It's always just been like, "We believe in you. We support you. We might not understand it, but at the end of the day, like we're behind you." So as hard as I've fallen, and I, I honestly don't even tell my mom half the times that I really fail because I know she'd freak out and just
Yeah.
get really upset and protective. But I know at the end of the day, no matter how I fall, whether it's the bottom of the ocean, my parents will be there, my core group will be there, and it won't matter.
Of course. No, it's crazy because a lot of people don't understand how many times you gotta fail to get to any type of success, especially what we do.
Yeah,
So
that.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I've just said I told you a few success stories, but I could tell you 20 more stories of me failing. I mean, there's people I worked with before Phil that I looked up to, and it's a world where I almost wish I wasn't exposed to. They
Mm,
say ignorance. They say ignorance is bliss, and I think moving to the LA, it like kind of pulls the curtain back on a lot of the Hollywood world, and I think people are in it will understand what I'm saying more than
of course.
I can explain. But there's definitely some dark. I think any place that there's money and fame and clout, there's definitely a lot of dark things.
It's a wicked world. It's a wicked world. I mean, look, between us, I appreciate you absolutely being transparent, and even sharing some of these things. This is, because I can understand, I can see kind of reliving some of those things could be traumatic sometimes, and kind of have to go back. I understand what that can do. So, I really appreciate you seriously sharing those stories and stuff with us.
I mean, I'll be transparent because I know there's like if there's a little girl watching this anywhere, I kind of want to just pull back the curtain a little.
Kind of,
And it's not always the coolest thing to be the biggest influencer. And I'm not even just talking about myself. Like there's other people who have like I know who all have like a million followers, and they wake up every morning with 20 new, maybe 30 new DMs of people they don't even know telling them terrible things about themselves. And I don't care how strong of a person you are, it's hard. And in this industry, there's a lot of backstabbing and people willing to do whatever it takes to get to the top, and competitiveness, especially between women, that's not necessary. And it's just, uh, I try to shed the most realistic light on it that I can. But again, I'm very blessed. I have met some really amazing people, and I have a really amazing support system. And I realize not everyone has that.
yeah,
Some people don't have a safety net, and I completely get that. More so than I ever did because I did not realize how protected I was
yeah,
in Philly because I've been around those people since I was 14. So anything I did, I always had like a extra layer of protection. But then when I came to LA,
You're naked. You're just by yourself out there, man. It's tough.
it, it was crazy to go from knowing everyone and everyone knowing me to
Strange.
not knowing a single soul, not being able to trust a single soul, also being naive, assuming that people had good intentions always, and it was a little dangerous to probably be that naive, but it's different when you take away that safety group, and I'm glad I did it. I think I grew more in these last 3 years than I ever have in my entire life. But I mean, I think if people are surrounded by loved ones, they should be more grateful today than they ever have been. And I'm just fortunate that I'm loved so much that it was across the country, but not having anyone in person is tough.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, no, oh my God, that's so much to get to. I mean, oh, that was it was crazy. It's deep because it's so many. If you know what you're saying, everything you're saying, and what you're alluding to in regards to kind of just jumping out on a ledge and not knowing how you'll land, where you're going. There's a lot of people in our industry that do that. So I understand everything you're saying. And
Obviously, there's so many times where I did not know where my next meal was coming from. I, fun fact, Phil knows I've done this, but I've scheduled work meetings with him so I can get like him to pay for lunch or dinner just because I didn't know when I was eating next. I really didn't.
gotcha.
Or I know a lot of people have gone to certain events just to make sure they have food. I mean, I remember a couple of the modeling shoots I did. They'll do this really cool thing where they have like a huge snack cart. I would hoard so many snacks. Like that's what it is.
Yeah. No, it's the life. It's you gotta hustle, you gotta grind, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's the unfortunate truth. It's the unfortunate truth. But with all that being said, I wanted to ask you. I mean, you kind of got a little bit into it, but is there a motto or saying you say like when things are going left and things do go left and you fall on your face more than enough in this industry, is there something, or just in life in general, I should say, because life comes at you fast, is there any motto or like I guess saying you like to tell yourself in general? I know you walk by faith a lot. It sounds like throughout the interview you're really into your beliefs and religion and things of that nature. Was there anything specifically you like to tell yourself when you're going through persevering times?
Yeah, you know what's crazy? I actually wasn't as religious before I moved out here. Like I always had faith in the background, but it wasn't as prevalent.
Gotcha.
I think moving out here, especially when you experience some of the things I experienced, you have to believe someone's watching over you. So I put a lot of trust in God. I also, I think in the back of my mind, again, like my worst case scenario is I fail at everything and I'm back in my loving parents for a second to reset. And I'm fortunate to have that. And I know there's a lot of people that don't, but I'm fortunate. Like my worst case scenario is much better than most people's.
Gotcha.
And just to put things in perspective, like at the end of the day, there's not a world where I starve. There's not a world
Mhm.
where I don't have someone to give me shelter. And I'm more than grateful for that. Again, and just even hooping, like I've been through so much. Like I just don't see like you can't knock me down far enough that I won't stand up.
Mm, that makes sense. No, yeah, I guess when you get hit to the pits of hell a couple times, like even when you get hit again, it's always that kind of remembering, like, yo, I beat greater odds. I defeated greater odds already. So it's almost like, I guess, it's almost like I'm gonna get out of this no matter what. I've been down lower. I've been in wilder situations. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
People can take money away from you. They can like say whatever they want about you, but they can never take away who you are like who you are as a person, your soul. And again, back to that core group, I'm so grateful. I think with social media and with a lot of things, it's so easy to perceive people a certain way or make assumptions. And again, I'm just grateful of how grounded I am by the group I do have.
Yeah. You've mentioned him so many times, like, I could tell. It's like, it means a lot, and it does. It does. It really does, especially in any form of life. Like, you need someone to rely on, or you need someone to kind of give you that, that extra push sometimes. You know what I mean? That's really cool. That's really cool, and it says a lot about you. You know. Um, in regards, because we spoke about a lot, and this was a wonderful, wonderful interview. One of my favorites I've had in a really long time. In conclusion, yeah, I know you've given a lot of game. You've given a lot of, different gems throughout the interview. But is there anything specifically for either young boys, young girls, anyone who's looking to break into this industry, looking to kind of resonate with your journey or anything like that? Is there anything you would like to leave them with before we're closing out?
I mean, I would say just go for it, to be honest. Again, and you have to be your greatest. Like, you have to believe in yourself greater than anyone else can doubt you. And I think that's the biggest factor. Again, I also think failing isn't necessarily a bad thing, just
Mm,
learning how to move different. And there's nothing anyone could take away from you that really matters.
absolutely, absolutely. That's advice to take for life. That's like not even that's deep. That's deep. That's deep. So
It's a dog eat dog world out here. So
no, I get it. I can hear it in your voice. I can hear it. I can hear it at the end of every sentence, and I can't thank you enough. Seriously. We understand how busy you are, and I'm pretty sure the masses, when they get a hold of this, they're gonna super appreciate and enjoy this. I appreciate you again for taking the time out to come chat with us, and I wish you so well in our journey. When you come out here, let's definitely connect. Meet in person, things like that. If I'm ever out there, you'll be one of the first people I call. With that being said, seriously, thank you again, and we'll be watching your journey very closely, and we hope this isn't the last time we run into each other for sure.
yeah, and I love what you guys do. You really support women, and any site or outlet that supports women the way you guys do or see women the way you guys do, it's more than appreciated. Again, um, I've been asked to do a couple interviews. This is actually my first one. This is my first one that I really let in a little bit of my journey because, again, I keep a lot of things close to the chest, especially living in LA. You kind of learn to do that second nature, and you really could like. It takes a special person to convince me to come out here, and just give yourself props.
My God, my God. Yeah, no, man, that means a lot. That means a lot, and like I said, man, it definitely won't be the last time. Wish to definitely stay in contact throughout this, and appreciate it.